Thank you. I move to disallow the Industry Research and Development Dealership and Repairer Initiative for Electric Vehicle Electrification Nationally Driven Program. What a mouthful. It's an instrument, I forgot to say, 2024, made under the Industry Research and Development Act 1986. This is where the fun bit starts. This regulation One Nation seeks to revoke is a $60 million slush fund that Climate Change and Energy Minister Chris Bowen, there he is again, will have to splash around on pet projects. Specifically, this is $60 million for the installation and repair of electric vehicle chargers. These are electric vehicle chargers from which only some of the most well-off of Australians who can afford an EV will benefit. While rents are skyrocketing, houses are more unaffordable than ever, groceries keep getting more expensive and beer is heading towards $15 a pint, taxpayers should not be slugged with more taxes to pay for this government's slush fund. Why is the government obsessed with putting everyone into electric vehicles? Some of them have decent speed, admittedly, when you put your foot down. Yet the range on purely electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, is mostly terrible. It gets even worse when trying to tow something. Forums for the F-150 Lightning Ford, a battery-powered ute, are full of horror stories that unfold as soon as the trailer is attached. This is worldwide. Australians already know all of this and are voting with their wallet. The rejection of battery EVs shows up in new car sales figures. Battery electric vehicles were just 6.5% of new car sales. And how long have they been offered? Years. Even here in capital Wokistan, Canberra, home of the country's loudest virtue signallers, battery electric vehicles are just 3.6% of all vehicles on the road. This is despite every effort of government and multinational corporations trying to pull Australians away from the trusty petrol and diesel engine. There's been a near decade of propaganda and lies trying to convince Australians to make the switch, not buying it. Never mind the hugely expensive tax breaks that give an EV buyer tens of thousands of dollars. These tax breaks include exemptions from the lower luxury car tax threshold, exemptions from the penalties under the new vehicle efficiency standard, or the ute tax, as it's become known. No fuel excise at 50.8 cents a litre. Exemptions from fringe benefits tax, representing a $12,000 saving on a $60,000 EV, but costing taxpayers $550 million a year. Taxpayers pay for this. This is Robin Hood in reverse, robbing the poor to pay for the wealthy, plus an array of rebates from state governments across the country. They've thrown just about every tax break in the book at EVs, and still Australians aren't fussed over the inferior electric vehicle products. More than 95% of vehicles on the road still contain internal combustion engines, the trusty petrol and diesel, the reliable petrol and diesel, the safe petrol and diesel. Naturally aspirated, turbocharged, supercharged, or in a hybrid setup. Australians have rightly shunned battery EVs for engines that make a noise when turned on. Tradies cried out in horror when the legendary V8 from the Toyota Land Cruiser 200 series and utes was removed from market in anticipation of the coming government regulations and crackdowns. Now, are EVs cheaper to run? Well, a car expert road trip test throws real doubt on that. They drove 2 BMWs on a road trip from Melbourne to Sydney. The same exact car, same year of make, same start, same finish point. The only difference, one was battery electric version, the other hydrocarbon fuelled. When they arrived in Sydney, the electric vehicle charging had cost more for the road trip than filling up with the most expensive 98 petrol. Of course, electricity isn't free, and neither are these charges. The Minister's slush fund we are seeking to disallow here is paying for the installation of chargers that are businesses in themselves, so we're paying for a business. Taxpayers will foot the bill for installing a charger, and the EV business will reap all the profits from the charge they sell through it forever, for eternity. We would never do this with service stations because it's bloody ridiculous. Taxpayers should not be paying for the profits of these often foreign multinational companies who run charging services. And then the fire risk. Everyone knows about this. Then there's electric vehicle industry's dirty little secret. The batteries and these chargers present an extreme fire risk. Car ferries carrying thousands of new car deliveries have been left to burn and potentially sink after battery fires have broken out in mid-ocean. Just last month, News.com reported, quote, "There are concerns an abandoned EV carrier floating aimlessly in the Pacific Ocean could continue to burn for weeks. Salvage operators have finally reached the Morning Midas, around 350 kilometres south of Adak, Alaska, a week after a first-caught fire, and 22 crew were rescued by the US Coast Guard after being forced to abandon ship. The floating inferno is said to have been caused by the lithium-ion batteries in the 70 electric vehicles on board, batteries that can cause fires that can burn for weeks. Some apartment complexes, towers, have banned battery electric vehicles in their car parks. Our fire departments are sounding the alarm on the increased risk battery fires present. These battery fires often simply can't be put out and must be left for days to burn themselves out. Burn themselves out, left for days. One suggestion to deal with an electric vehicle fire is to have the burning wreck forklifted, imagine a forklift driver, into a waiting shipping container of water to try and keep it contained. That's a suggestion. Seriously, that's the best firefighting strategy we have when one of these EVs goes up. Insurance. Insurance companies have confirmed the risk in electric vehicles is real with their increased premiums. Insurance comparison site Compare the Market conducted a study of 12 insurers and has shown the top 5 best-selling EVs are 43% more expensive to insure than similar internal combustion models. So EVs are more expensive to buy, more expensive to drive, more expensive to charge, and more expensive to insure. We're running out of categories to find out where EVs are actually cheaper. What about environmentally friendly? Let's ask that question. As for being environmentally friendly, the process for making batteries is one of the most environmentally destructive in the world, killing the environment to save the planet. The hundreds of kilograms of minerals that go into the battery include aluminium, copper, steel, iron, graphite, nickel, lithium, manganese, cobalt. And these require extremely intensive mining and refinement and huge amounts of energy. Both resources and energy consumed in electric vehicle manufacturing is way above that consumed in making a petrol or diesel engine car. Many of these raw minerals are sourced from conflict-torn places like the Democratic Republic of Congo, using child labourers and slaves. The overall environmental impact of building an EV is devastating, as is the social impact. The raw materials are sourced from ethically questionable countries and processed almost exclusively by Chinese, communist China-controlled companies. That's where the focus on EVs leaves Australians, completely reliant on China. And then there's Minister Burke, Tony Burke, whose Chinese EV won't plug in the phone, says don't plug in the phone. Worries about being reliant on China aren't overblown. Government departments are warning Labor politicians of the same thing. The Strategist Journal reported in November that, quote, Senate estimates heard the remarkable revelation that Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke had to take precautions based on warnings from his own department to protect himself and the nation's sensitive information from Mr Burke's own Chinese-made electric car. He's got to protect himself and protect the security of the country from a Chinese electric car. The risk with such cars, according to Home Affairs officials, might include having data collected from the owner's phone if it were connected to the car, voice calls eavesdropped on, image collection from the car's external cameras and geolocation tracking, meaning that if Mr Burke drove to a sensitive government location, the car's manufacturer in China would be able to see. That's the end of the quote. If these are risks to the ministers, those same risks are inherent for all Australians. Bloody ridiculous. What's even more confusing about the government EV push is that petrol and diesel engines are only getting better and more efficient in their newest versions. And did anyone mention weight? Electric vehicles are humongous in weight. Small, turbocharged, extremely efficient diesel engines were becoming the powertrain of choice, especially in small cars. Fuel efficiency numbers we couldn't have dreamt of 20 years ago were being beaten. Then all the car makers of the world suddenly, and many stupid governments around the world, seemingly overnight, had to imagine that petrol vehicles and diesel engines were dead. Imagine that. Everyone would be driving an EV. and imagine that apparently blind or not caring for the downsides in range, resources and longevity. So just as we were getting to some of the cleanest, most efficient diesel and petrol vehicles ever made, why did the government decide no one would ever want to drive them again? They decided for the taxpayers. They decided for the citizens of Australia. And why does the government want to splash billions of dollars in technologies Australians clearly don't want and are environmentally reprehensible? The answer may lie in the plans for Australia's energy grid. The government needs electric vehicles hooked up to the grid under their plans for consumer energy resources like EV batteries to be connected to virtual power plants. They want to use your car as a battery. The government can't afford to build all the batteries needed under their net zero plan. They don't even know how much. There's no plan. So the government wants Australians to buy an EV with a battery that can be taken over and discharged to the grid. They don't tell you that, do they? But that's what they're wanting. The Australian Renewable Energy Agency says this, quote, can help stabilise the power grid, batteries that is, from EVs, can help stabilise the power grid by supplying power back during times of high demand. End of quote. There it is. Do you hear that in their advertisements? No. Like many things, this will start off as a voluntary scheme currently called bi-directional charging or vehicle to grid. Sounds good, but think about what it means. It means stealing your electricity when you want it. Then the inevitable threat of blackouts and instability of the electricity grid under net zero will become an emergency, and everyone with an EV will be forced to participate. And then, so what we've got now is power shortages in some states as they destroy perfectly good coal, gas generation and try to replace it with solar and wind and fail to replace it. So we've got a shortage of electricity, a shortage of reliable electricity. And now they want to convert the car fleet, the transport fleet, to EVs, to add more demand to the electricity sector. Then they want to promote artificial intelligence, which is an electricity hub. And then they want to support Bitcoin mining. Where is all this going to lead? Massive sky prices, shortages, unreliability and instability and insecurity. The government's plan, or what it claims is a plan, is all very complicated, but they don't know what they're doing. That is fact. One nation's solution is much simpler. Australians should be allowed to drive whatever car they want, whatever car they can afford, whether it's a four-wheel drive, a ute or a smart car. Only one nation has a policy to cancel all policies which lead to the death of the V8 engine being provided as an option to Australian car buyers. Porsche, Mercedes-Benz said that EVs would take over, and they stopped making V8s. Now they're bringing back V8s and they're scaling back their EV plans. President, I ask the Senate to revoke this electric vehicle slush fund and join One Nation in bringing back the V8.